right, and ready to go.
Great. Thank you all for attending our meeting today. I'm going to call to order the January 2021 meeting of the City of Columbus Skilled Trades Review Board. The first thing we'll do is call roll of the board members. Mr. Hartz.
Present.
Mr. Hill is not here.
Mr. Hill will not be here.
Yes. Mr. Hoover.
Present.
Mr. Consul. Mr. Landers.
Mr. Consul is on here. Let me a second. I'm going to make sure I get him unmuted for you so he can. After Consul, saw him on here. I can't unmute him. There he goes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Landers and Mr. Watkins are not here, and Patty Spangler, I am here. So we do have a quorum with 4 in attendance today. Okay. There is an item on our agenda to read and accept the minutes from our previous meeting on October 21st. I am not sure that those minutes have been distributed yet. So could I have a motion to table the reading or the review of the meeting minutes from October?
Bob, you're unmuted.
Oh, I'm unmuted. How do I mute?
Yeah. So if you if you wanted to go ahead, and make that motion, that's what I figured you were trying to do. You have to unmute again, Bob. You muted it again.
Okay. No, I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry.
Okay, I am asking for a motion to table the review of the October minutes since they have not been distributed yet.
Since I'm unmuted, I'll make a motion.
All right, and do I have a second, please?
That was Mr. Hoover.
Okay, then I will, if you'll give your approval by voice, Mr. Hartz.
Approved.
Approved.
Mr. Consul.
Approved.
Thank you, and I approve as well. So we will table the reading of the minutes until the next meeting. I see that we have a number of guests with us today. Jim, could you introduce each of the guests and who they represent?
There you go. Sorry, I'm speaking away. I didn't have mine unmuted. Rick Taylor, I believe he's representing TaylorMade. And then Mr. Swisher is his legal representation. Please tell me if I have mistaken on any of that. But we also have on here Chris McCord. But Chris, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Chris is with TaylorMade as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We also have on here Eddie Jewell.
Yes, and I have Kim and Catherine McClellan with me, the homeowners.
Okay, and I believe that's also related to that complaint. So, and then I have Shannon Summers in here. He's the second complaint we have on here. I'm sorry, Terria Shepherd. I did mute you because we were getting a touch of feedback on there for a second. So if you need to come on there, you can go ahead and unmute. Terry, could you tell us who you were representing?
Taylor Development and Electric.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute you back up, Terry. Thank you. And I have well, that might have been Terry there because I think she changed or signed in a different way because we had a caller too in here, and that might have been Terry initially. So if I missed anybody, please unmute your mic and please speak up. I think I got everybody. I'm also going to try and put up here the the agenda for today, and I think this is it. There we go. All right, and it's back to you there, Patty.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will be hearing we'll be reviewing 2 cases today, and for everyone who will be giving us information, we would like to swear you in. So, and to do this over video, I'm going to ask each of you to affirm that you will, that all of the testimony you give today will be the whole truth. I'm going to start with Jim Richardson.
I do affirm that.
Rick Taylor.
I do affirm that.
Mr. Swisher.
I do affirm that.
Chris McCord.
Yes, I do affirm that.
Eddie Jewell.
I do affirm that.
And are the homeowners with you, Kim and Catherine McClellan?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and do you affirm as well?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Shannon Summers.
Yes, I do affirm that.
Yes, thank you. And Terria Shepherd.
I do affirm. Taria.
Taria, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Patty, real quick, with Shannon, there are some other people in there with them, so maybe we need to have them introduce themselves as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Sure. Hassan Ayub, I'm president of Apex Plumbing, and we have Jason Poot, vice president of Apex Plumbers. We are the employers for Shannon Summers. He works for this company now, and he's had his license transferred over to our company. So we thought maybe it would be a good idea to at least sit in and help explain moving forward what we're going to do.
Okay, great. If you would not mind, I'm going to ask you to, that in the event that you do offer any testimony, that you do swear to tell us the whole truth. And if you would affirm that, please. Mr. Hassan.
I affirm.
And Jason.
I affirm.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our new business, and we have a due process hearing for Tailor-Made Mechanical. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back to Jim Richardson to help lead us through this.
I don't have the complaint right in front of me, but I do know that the alleged violations are 4013.57, which is permit qualifications. In fact, let me pull this up here. So here's the 413.63. It says no person shall construct, install, or otherwise repair without first obtaining a permit, essentially. I mean, I don't want to read through that whole entire thing, but as you can see here in this section, that's really what we're talking about. And you have to refresh my memory, because unless I'm mistaken, that is what was on the complaint. I don't have those before me because, unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to go downtown today. So I had to kind of put this stuff together really quickly for us. It was 413.63. And give me a moment here. I have to. Our other part of that was .69.73. So again, so if we go to again, it's one was for the other one is for a refrigeration permit, and then the last one would have been for, I believe, the electrical 4013.73. So, and that might be why Korea, I hope I said that correctly. I apologize if I didn't, but I think that's how she said she pronounced her name. That might be why she is on here.
Yes.
Okay. So again, what it boils down to is it appears, that work was performed prior to acquiring the permits. And Tony, if you could maybe bring up that complaint. I know you've got them. I didn't get a chance to forward that to myself, and I do apologize for that, folks. Oh no, I just lost myself. Okay. Tony Gillum, did you hear me? Am I not here?
Okay, I will
Does
ask if the
anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear
thank you. Because I was thinking for a second that somehow I got disconnected.
No, I am going to ask if the board members who are present all have a copy of the complaint in front of them. Mr. Hartz,
Yes.
Mr. Hoover,
Yes.
Mr. Consul, Mr. Consul, we've lost you. We want to know if you have a copy of the complaints in front of you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to ask the complainants, Eddie Jewell and the homeowners. In the interest of time, we are doing 2 hearings today, so I'm going to ask you to very briefly, and by that I mean like 5 minutes or less, please fill us in on the complaint that you have. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the time. So the complaint, I'm just going to read it. Rick Taylor and Chris McCord started work. Homeowners made a number of changes. They were charged an additional $6,600 to complete the additional work. None of the work is complete. They've made many promises but never came through. They've missed several completion deadlines, as well as just not showing up to work on the project when they said they would. I discovered on July the 6th that they hadn't even pulled the electric or HVAC permits. They've been working without permits. I notified them I was bringing in replacements, reporting a complaint to BZS, and pursuing them for damages incurred. I gave them, I believe, 2 weeks to get things completed because they had told me we've only got a few days left. I also included transcripts of 100+ text messages back and forth so you can see the promises that weren't kept. And so finally, when they didn't meet that final deadline, I thought if they didn't even pull permits, maybe they can't. Although they provided, copies of licenses. So we basically had no choice because this drug on from September of 19 all the way into July, and we just weren't able to complete the project. And so we made the complaint. We had the city inspector come who validated that they did indeed do a lot of work with no permits pulled. And so we really had no choice. I practically begged them to come and do the work that they agreed to, which they've already been paid for way more than they did, but they did not do that. And Kim would like to add.
Okay, whoever's speaking right now, your mic is breaking out. We're not hearing it.
Okay, is that better? Yes, okay. So we built an addition and actually told Rick and Chris that we wanted to have somebody else do the electric and heating cooling for that part of the project. But they told us that they held the permits already, and that would be very hard to work out the logistics of that. And so we said, okay, we'll go with you, continue with you. And so they then asked us also for a $4,000 to retainer to do that work. And then, of course, we found out in the aftermath, they never had the permits to begin with, but they told us they had the permits, and that's why we paid them more money to also do that additional work.
Okay, great. Thank you. I really appreciate your brevity. That was very, very insightful. Does any of the board have questions for the homeowners?
Have things I want to say, that would be fine. I would just also like to clarify that in this whole process, we had a number of extensive conversations with both Rick and Chris about progress, deadlines, kind of the whole logistical doings, as well as Eddie did. And, you know, we felt we had established a rapport and kind of a working relationship. And so we were kind of caught off guard that we were never able to come to a finish point on anything, much less the additional money that we gave them to do additional work. So that was another part. So we don't have ill will with Rick or Chris, because we actually felt like we kind of established some friendship in this whole process, but we just never could get that to come to fruition.
Patty, if I may real quick, I appreciate all those comments for everybody, but what the board really has to address is those three things. How much money you've paid to them, whether they met your contract deadlines and things. The board has absolutely no power to deal with those things whatsoever. It's the only thing we're here to deal with would be, did they acquire the permits or not acquire the permits? And just so everybody's clear on that, and I know, Patty, you were probably getting ready to tell us all that too, the way you're shaking your head, but I have to make sure everybody understands what this board's powers and duties really are.
Yes, thanks, Jim. It's kind of scary. You were like in my head. I was actually going to reiterate that as well. I would like to ask Mr. McCord or Mr. Rick Taylor or their counsel to fill us in on a response.
If I may begin, just as a brief kind of overview, and Ms. Spangler and Mr. Richardson, if you really want to be afraid, you're also thinking the same way I am. So if that doesn't give you any concern, I don't know what would. The one, I guess, thing that I want to, point out is I'd like to ask the board, and especially I would like to ask Rick and Chris to specifically address the permitting issue. I mean, those are the things that are within the purview of the board first and foremost. But I would also say that, and part of the reason that I am on the call today, Rick and Chris are fully capable of discussing the permitting issues with the board and kind of asking or answering questions that the board may have of them. But obviously, whatever money may or may not be owed is, I think, to say is in dispute, I think is probably without question, given my attendance at this hearing. And so I would prefer, if possible, because again, that issue is in dispute between my clients and I believe Mr. Jewell, that my clients wouldn't necessarily be requested to maybe address that monetary issue, because that may be something that we would be addressing through some other type of potential litigation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that sounds like a great plan. If Chris McCord or Rick Taylor, if you'd like to respond and give us some insight on the permitting process.
Go ahead, Rick. I'll follow your lead there.
I did receive the building card from Chris to pull the permits. I believe. Actually, it's not. I did not pull the permits. Full license in all 3 mechanicals, and as well, we are at any given time. My videos actually. At any given time, able to pull permits. Yes, I did forget to pull the permits, and it's not because I was not going to pull the permits. Naturally, when there's a building permit, you don't go in and and work without and expect to get away with it. That was never the intentions there. The job had so many hiccups and changes and different scenarios that they're good people, the homeowners. There was just a miscommunication on both sides, and a lot of changes once again. And like I said, the job started going kind of shut down for 4 or 5 months. The addition, there was just several things that went on with the job. So did we work without intentions of not pulling permits? No, absolutely not. Yes, it did slip my mind, and I will take full liability for not pulling the permits on this different property. But if you check and see that we pull permits daily, so it's not like, we're trying to sneak one under the radar.
I also want to state for the record that the addition is part of the same property. It has 1 electrical panel, 1 HVAC device, so only requires 1 permit per, trade for the 1 unit. So just to clarify that as well.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. Does the board have any questions for anyone who has spoken to us on this issue?
Yeah, this is Tim Hoover. Mr. McCord, since you seem to have a better connection here, I'm going to tap onto you a little bit and ask you to re-clarify for us what was the scope of work?
So
initially,
the original start of the job was to rehabilitate, do the HVAC and electrical for Eddie Jewell. So we've worked on other jobs together, and he works with other contractors that I work with. We pull permits on everything that we do. So we agreed to do the electrical and HVAC on that job. There was never any talk of plumbing other than they asked us to do some stuff after the fact later, but we did not agree to. We did not pull the permit. There were several changes on the job. So when we started the job, we did demo. Kind of got married to the job, so to speak, looking at it, see what we needed to do, and how to word whatever we needed to word for permitting and stuff, and get the building permit. there were some changes on there. Then we talked about an addition. We kind of pulled off the job for a little bit. You know, we did get careless. We didn't pull the permit when we should have. Rick, you know, was responsible for pulling them and didn't do it. You know, we are guilty of that. But we do, if you look in the records, how much money we spend with permitting to Columbus every year. You know, we pull permits a lot. You know, everything that we do. We're in the rehabilitation in the south end where they're really putting a lot of money in that property. They can't sell houses if they're not permitted.
So I think I'm just trying to make sure that I'm clear. So there's a base scope of work, and then there was some additional scope to do an addition on the facility. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. They built an addition on there, you know, and then there was several changes where, you know, they wanted to put, you know, a device over here, a device over there, or, you know, they wanted to add a bunch of different receptacles down in the basement. You have to forgive me because I'm HVAC. I was part of it, so I know that there was a lot of different outlets, industrial stuff that they're wanting to put down their basement that caused some changes. And then the HVAC, when the addition was put on there, they were thinking of controlling it with some DTAC units when, you know, did it with one system. So there was a bunch of different changes that kind of paused it. Then we had to wait on certain things to get done. And also there was things that were not completed that we were asking to be completed, pushing us back. And, you know, we just were busy. We are guilty of not pulling a permit properly in time like we should have.
Hey, Chris, this is Zach. I want to just be clear because I don't think Mr. Hoover's question, I don't think you answered his question.
I'm sorry.
What I think what his question was, or what his question is what was your scope of work on this job? I don't believe you were doing the addition. What exactly was your role or scope of work on this job?
Oh, okay. Well, to put in new ductwork for, you know, the HVAC. So I'll put the ductwork in, get it ready for inspection. Electrical the same way. You know, pull wires, conduits, tear out walls, ceilings, things like that. We had to do to perform the work. Electrical and HVAC, heating and cooling, and electrical.
So thanks for clarifying that, Mr. Swisher. Where I'm headed with this is that so there's certain phases for the installation of any system, whether it be electrical, whether it be plumbing, whether it be hydronics, or whether it be sheet metal. So in the HVAC world, at what point in time would you call for a rough-in inspection, Mr. McCord?
Once everything that's behind drywall, anything that would be concealed behind drywall would have to be installed properly to code before calling in for a rough inspection.
And assuming right now that there's no drywall installed on the facility, because that's still affording you opportunity to call for inspection to get a rough-in inspection, correct?
I have not visited the property for some time. At the time that we left the job, there was no drywall installed.
At this point, once we notified them if they didn't have their roughs finished and permits pulled, we brought in other licensed professionals who did pull permits and who promptly finished their work. And the house has been, all the roughs have been approved, the rough framing, the insulation, and it's in the process of being drywalled now. I did just want to point out that if you take the time to look through the text messages, you'll see I probably made 20 requests to get those roughs done. And they told me we're a few days out, we'll get it done next week. I don't want to point fingers or make accusation other than I have a very hard time believing that it was an omission to pull permits. I think I did about 70 projects last year as a home improvement contractor. And I don't think I ever forgot to pull a permit. let alone 2 different mechanical permits on 2 separate licenses. So I would trust the board can use good judgment on whether that was true or not.
Patty, I think it's fair to reiterate the same point we made earlier. It's not for us to determine accuracy of statements or not. It's for us to determine, in fact, that a permit was or was not pulled, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The issue before us is whether or not the work was completed, or whether or not a permit was pulled for the work completed.
Me, for clarity's sake, the installing contractor has admitted to performing work without pulling a permit. Mr. Richardson, I'm not sure where all the feedback's coming from, but I'm getting a lot of feedback on my end.
Is that better, Tim?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any further questions for anyone who has spoken in front of us?
I do not.
I'm not a board member, but I wanted to clarify. I placed the complaint and I was served a stop work order on all of the work. As a result of my complaint, we had an inspector come from the city to verify that HVAC and electrical work had been completed, not completed, that they were working on HVAC and electrical, but there were no permits pulled. So if the purpose of this is simply to determine if there were permits pulled, you would know there weren't permits pulled because I made the complaint, you sent the inspectors, they verified it.
I want to address this real quick, Patty. I appreciate your comments there, but honestly, they are entitled to due process. That's why we're here. This is through due process. So I appreciate the comments, but we're going to let Patty move on with the next step of the process.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, the next step in the process is based upon the testimony and the evidence presented. Does the board find that Tailor-Made Mechanical is guilty or not guilty of working without permits in the various categories that are listed? This is not a motion. This is just a finding of fact. Have we found fact that they are guilty or not?
I believe that we have found fact that they are guilty of performing work without pulling a permit.
Do I have a second for that finding?
I will second.
All right, and if you'll give your approval by voice, Mr. Hartz,
Approved.
Mr. Hoover,
Approved.
Mr. Congsel. Thank you. That is a thumbs up for Mr. Congsel and a yes for me as well. Okay, with the finding of fact that Tailor-Made Mechanical did perform the work without a permit, and I'm sorry, I think we skipped motion. We have actually moved that they've been found guilty, and we did approve that. So our next motion is, as a result of them being found guilty, what consequence would we recommend, or do I need to back up?
Point of order, Patty. No, what you had was a motion that finding a fact that
yes,
there was a finding of fact that they were guilty of doing it, but you still have to find I don't want to put that. Let me put that thing back up there because there are 2 processes to that, and We do have Winnie Boots on here, so she can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't believe that I'm wrong because we have it right here.
Yes,
So we have
mentioned
a finding of fact, which is our number
Yes.
one, right? And then we need a motion of whether or not they're guilty, which that's really where we're at right now. And then we move on to the if we have a finding of guilt, then we move on to the penalty phase.
Yes, I was trying to be efficient and kind of jumped ahead. My fault.
That's
Okay,
all good.
so we also, thank you, board. We also need a motion that Tailor-Made Mechanical is indeed guilty of violating the city sections that are outlined in the complaint. Do I have a motion for finding them guilty?
I make that motion that Tailor-Made is guilty.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, great, thank you. And by roll call, Mr. Hartz,
Approved.
Mr. Hoover,
Approved.
Mr. Consul. And I see another thumbs up from Mr. Consul, and I also approve that motion to find Tailor-Made Mechanical guilty of violating the city sections as noted. Since we have found Tailor-Made Mechanical guilty, we now need to discuss the consequence for that. And we have three options here. We may either take no action, we may suspend their license, or we may revoke their license. And I'm open for discussion with any recommendations from the board.
My feeling, can you hear me?
Yes.
My feeling at this point is no action, because I cannot imagine a company with any intention of hiding something and having a building card that any inspector would catch with new ductwork in it. So my feeling is it was an oversight. I guess I would ask, have there been any more infractions on this company? Did you hear me?
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, that's going to have to go to Tony Gillum as far as whether or not we have any other additional ones.
Give me a second. I'm looking right now.
Hello, Patty.
Yes.
You know, and thinking about Bob's motion, I would suggest that maybe we delay whatever we're going to decide until next month's meeting.
Patty, this is Tim as well. I was thinking the same thing, that would give us enough time to be able to acquire the necessary information and backup that has not only been initially requested, but also I'd like to add to that request as to, has Tailor-Made ever been called in front of the board before, and if so, for what reasons? No matter if it's been for the last 6 months, 12 months, I'm saying from the time that they initiated being a contractor for the city of Columbus, I'd like to know if they've ever been called in front of the board before.
I can answer that. This is Rick Taylor. Yeah, we've never been called.
With that, I think that's a good request you'd have there, and now I will second that if that is your motion.
Yes, I believe, do I have a motion now to table this for until next month?
I'll make a motion to table this request for Taylor made until next month.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of tabling the consequence portion until next month? I'll go by roll call. Mr. Hart,
Approved.
Mr. Hoover,
Approved.
Mr. Consul,
Approved.
and I approve as well. We will table the consequence phase until next month and hopefully get a little bit more information to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board members for their time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swisher.
We thank you all, and those of you who are involved with the tailor-made complaint, please feel free to drop off. We appreciate all of your time today, and we'll take this up again next month when we have a little bit more information from our end.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, great. Our next order of business is our next due process hearing for Summers Mechanical Contracting, Shannon Summers. And our complainant is Taria Shepard. And again, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask that you just very briefly tell us what is going on. Thank you.
Who did you want to speak first?
I'm sorry, that was a great question. Ms. Shepard, you're the complainant, so we're going to ask you to start. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Taria Shepard. I am a licensed home improvement contractor and general contractor. I've been licensed for a long time, in the field for a long time. Long story short, I was hired to partner up with a local real estate investor. They have their own construction company, but this project, this duplex 1501, 1503 Duxbury was a little bit big for them. So they pulled the permits for the exterior items. We ended up finishing, and then they hired our firm to do the design, remodel, and just project management. So I hired a mechanical and architectural team, EA Energy. We worked on a lot of projects with them. And they did the survey of the property, they did the drawings, they worked with the city to pull the permit. So they did the floor plans for the bathrooms, the kitchen, everything. And our partner loved the ideas. So long story short, I text first Shannon Summers, who was with Shannon Summers Mechanicals. I checked. I kind of had a little bit of a few jobs with him over the years, and he was highly recommended. I first text him, this is what the project scope, in fact, I had a lot of projects I sent him. He texted me back his price. I ended up meeting with him at another job site that he was on. I brought the blueprints, he looked it over, and we ended up signing a work order, a contract. And the contract states he would do the plumbing. So he would install the kitchens for both units, the hot water tanks, the bathrooms. It was a bathtub, vanity, and a toilet. The vent stack, he would make sure his work, he would pull the permit. It says pull permit first and make sure all work is compliant according to City of Columbus codes and Ohio State Code. Also, he was to clean up after himself. And on this particular contract, he was supposed to buy the toilet, the vanity. He was supposed to make it all work for $10,000. He was given $5,000, and he was supposed to start within 2 weeks. About almost 2 months later, a lot of text messages, a lot of promises. And at that point, it was like, listen, you're making us look bad. We just want you to just give me my money back. I can get another contractor. He then, upon that text, went ahead and he started doing the work. And he texted me, the permit's been pulled. I said, just tape it with all the other contractors on the window, along with ours. We are also a licensed electrical company, so we posted our permit for electrical, HVAC, did the same. So pretty much all the, the windows, a lot of different stickers of permits pulled. So long story short, the framing was already done, and the electrician, us, we ran all the rough electric, and we had passed on the firewall that read fire stop. So the firewall was also a low bearing wall. And so when the city came out, they approved the work we did on the rough. Everything was great. Shannon started working on the plumbing, but he, I would say in the basement and upstairs, and he was starting to work in the kitchen. Long story short, my HVAC guy, he came and did his rough. And so at that point, Shannon wasn't finished with the plumbing, but he had cut the load-bearing wall in the kitchen that we had our electrical wires running through. He cut the load-bearing wall, which was also the firewall, and he moved the whole section of it and ran all his pipes, which was just crazy, through the wall. I believe we submitted pictures and whatnot. And so what happened, I wasn't on that site. My HVAC guy, Franklin Mechanicals, he called for his rough inspection for the HVAC, and that inspector put a stop and assist on the whole job site because they said, you guys cut the load-bearing wall and the firewall. And he said, you guys got to hire a structural engineer. So I had text Shannon. I said, why? I said, I told you, why did you cut that wall? He was like, the wall was come down. I said, no, it wasn't. We ran our electric through it. Everybody, the HVAC guy ran his ductwork on the outside of it. Is like, I knew that looked like a hot mess. And I said, and then also, he said the bathroom was too small to put a tub. So long story short, I had to hire a structural engineer, Sashi. I can't pronounce his last name, but Sashi came. He's a structural engineer. He looked at it. He said, yeah, the plumber moved that. He made a note. I believe we provided that. So I had to pay him. We had to hire another company to rebuild the wall. Long story short, Shannon, we learned he basically, he just was terminated. Because at that point, talking to structural engineer, it's like, there's no way this guy knows what he's doing. To remove that big portion of the low-bearing wall with no other support, and it's a firewall, and then took our electrical work down, and then said the drawings were incorrect. At that point, Shannon was, I was just dumbfounded. So upon hiring another plumber, which is His Grace Plumbing and Drains, we found out that Shannon never even pulled the permit, and he said he did. And so once we looked into it, it was like, oh my God, dude, you never even pulled the permit. And so you wasn't supposed to work till you did the permit. You caused us all kind of headaches, and you delayed this project. And by God's grace, the project is finished. All permits passed, including the final inspection. Tenants are occupying it. The property looks gorgeous. But Shannon is supposed to give us a refund. So I know it's another matter, but he totally screwed that project. I'll say I'm done talking. I'm up to complete it.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to find my button. So, thank you so much for that information. Does anyone on the board have questions for Ms. Shepard?
I do not at this time.
Okay, this is Shannon Summers. Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the original design of the bathroom, she had the toilet next to the wall, and the tub was supposed to go against it was sitting up against the door frame. It was going the opposite direction of the bathroom, in the same direction of the bathroom, but it didn't fit. So I told her, maybe you can put a shower in, and I have pictures to see how small, like you couldn't even walk from past the showers to get to the toilet. That's how tight it was. And the original design, the way she has it now. Yes, sir.
Shannon, hang on one second. This is Jim Richardson, and I do want to point out, look, as far as how the project went,
okay.
people,
All
anybody, we don't really need to hear all that. What
Okay.
we're interested in here is the items that are before us here, and I'm going to put this up here for everybody. Okay, so give me a second. What we need to hear about is, testimony regarding why we did not acquire a permit in the proper amount of time. Okay, so that's what we're addressing here, not
Okay.
contracts,
Okay.
because we don't really care about your contracts at all. That has nothing to do with this board.
Okay.
So let's just, so we can save you guys time, everybody else time here. Let's focus on the issues at hand, please.
Okay. As far as the load bearing wall, I removed a wall. There was an old brown wall, it was a stud wall that was going down the middle of that new plumbing chase they built for the duplex.
Shannon, please.
It's all about permits.
The permit?
That has nothing to do with the permit. We were talking about the permit. That's all we need to hear about. Why do we don't have?
As me working back and forth, I was down in Dayton and I was coming up back and forth and trying to rush to get her job done for her. And I had a lot of stuff on my plate. I did intend to pull the permit, but when I talked to her about, the issues I was having, she said, don't come back out to the job. Give me $3,000 back. Don't pull the permit. She said, take your permit off the job. And since I didn't have time to pull it, I just didn't pull it. And, I pull permits on every job that I work on, especially if I have a building permit. You can't sneak that past the city. I usually pull them. I pull them before my roof or as soon as I get started if I have time. But I was not trying to get over on the city or on her by not pulling the permit. That's not the case. I have the text messages where she said, remove your permit off the job. We don't want you back out here. And that's that.
Can I speak as well at all, or? I was just gonna say that it's true that Shannon, he admits that he didn't pull the permit. I spoke to him about it. He said, this is Hassan.
Your name? What is your name?
Hassan, I'm the president of Apex Plumbers, the company that Shannon's working for now. And I guess maybe some background. Shannon actually had his license put into the name of Apex Plumbers. We've been along a GC for 12 years with the city of Columbus, and we pull permits on all of our jobs. You guys can check that as well. But I did speak to Shannon when this came up, and we wanted to sit in with him because he's working for the company now and he's under our management. And one of the conditions of him working here is being a licensed plumber. So if he didn't have a license or if it was revoked, that would be detrimental to his employment as well. Not saying that's something for the board to consider, but we did speak to him on why the permit wasn't pulled. He relayed to us that it was an oversight. I looked through all the text messages and all the paperwork that was provided. I can't find any text that says where Shannon states that he did pull the permit. As Mrs. Shepherd states, it's all the documents are in front of you. I can't find anywhere where Shannon said he already pulled the permit and lied about pulling the permit. He said he was going to, but as he said, there was already a general permit pulled on the job, so there's no way he's going to ever think about sneaking something like that past the city. It was just an oversight, and then once he was fired, he didn't go ahead and pull the permit. But because Shannon is working for Apex Plumbers now, he has management. Jason here, our vice president. We wouldn't do any job without any permit being pulled. So we would make sure that that's being managed properly, and Shannon wouldn't have to kind of carry all the weight and he was probably a little disorganized and taking on a little more than he can chew as far as work goes. And that's part of the reason he wasn't able to pull one, but he intended to pull one before calling any inspections, obviously. And kind of that's what he explained to me, at least. So he's not saying that he didn't pull a permit, but he's trying to mitigate on why he didn't pull it and, give some reasons on why he wouldn't get into that situation again, being under new management, having a company that's backing him, and we would take care of all of that in-house on the back end with the office staff.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Does the board have any questions for either Ms. Shepherd, Mr. Summers?
I do not.
question. Mr. Summers, have you appeared before this board before?
Yes, I think my first year when I first, my first year in business back in 2012, I think, 13. I don't remember how long ago it was.
I've been 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Okay, and could you or Jim fill us in on what the extent of that action was?
The reason why I was in front of the board, it was for, I was doing a stack repair and I didn't pull the permit when I did a stack repair on on a residential home.
And what was the result of that complaint?
I think I had to pay a fine and I think my license was revoked for 30 days back then. I think that's what it was.
Now let me clarify that for you, Shannon.
I'm not sure. I don't remember. It's been so long.
We don't issue fines because that's not what the board does.
Okay.
But you were found guilty, and then you appealed it. Because when initially they did, I don't know if they suspended or revoked your license or registration at that point. The homeowner did not return for the second hearing, and as a result, they dismissed it, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, are there any further questions for our folks here? Okay, if the board has heard the information that they need, I'm looking for a motion based on the testimony and evidence presented. Did Summers Mechanical, or Shannon Summers, did they, as a fact, not pull the permit as stated?
So this is Mr. Hoover. Based upon the testimony and evidence presented, I move that the board find that Mr. Summers of, Summers Mechanical Contracting be found guilty of performing work, performing work without pulling permit.
Okay,
hold on. You
I
need to reword that.
Jim, I got you. Okay, our first motion is just a fact finding, so we are not finding guilt at this point. We're just confirming if Mr. Summers did indeed not pull the permit. Thank you.
I move that we that the board has determined that he did not pull a permit.
Great, thank you. And do I have a second for that finding?
I'll second.
Okay, and by voice, Mr. Hartz?
Approved.
Mr. Hoover?
Approved.
Mr. Consul?
Approved.
And I approve as well. So the board has determined that Shannon Summers did do the work without the permit. So due to the fact that we found that he performed the work without the permit, do we move that do we have a finding of guilt in the violation of the city sections under question?
So due to the fact that Summers Mechanical did perform the above listed violations, I move that they be found guilty of performing work without a permit.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Yes,
Great, thank you. So by voice, Mr. Hartz?
Approved.
Mr. Hoover?
Approved.
Mr. Consul? Thank you. That's a thumbs up for Mr. Consul, and I approve as well. Thank you. Okay, and finally, now that the board has found Mr. Summers guilty of working without the permit, we want to discuss the appropriate consequences. We have available to us three options. We may either do nothing, we may suspend his permit, or we may revoke it. And the floor is open for discussion with the board.
Did he have a record of how many permits Summers Mechanical has pulled in the last 12 months?
You have to give me a minute on that one there, Tim. I'll look it up.
When did this job take place?
In February, last year.
I would say to look up the number of permits pulled in January, February, March, just to see how busy it was.
February 2020. Well, you said you were working in other cities as well.
Indeed.
That's all weird.
Jen, while you're looking that up, I do have another question since I briefly heard something there. So, Mr. Summers, are you a licensed contractor in the city of Dayton?
Yes, I was registered in Dayton at the time to pull permits.
I'm thinking, you guys, I think,
Hearing on the city of Columbus, and just out of curiosity, just to see if you were licensed in other locations.
Am I licensed in other locations?
I was only clarifying that there's no relevance to that as it relates to this matter in City of Columbus.
Okay.
Confirming you are a license holder in other locations. We have are there other locations in the state of Ohio that you are a license holder?
I mean, no, other than the typical cities of Rentersburg and Pickerington and Canal Winchester, no, just, that's it, just state of Ohio.
Mr. Summers, how long have you been in business?
Since 2012.
I thought I heard that earlier. I just the sound keeps coming on, so I just want to make sure that was correct.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? This is Jim Richardson. So what I currently see on here for all of 2020, and that's from January 1st, 2020 to January 1st of this year. There are a total of 16 permits. Three of those, excuse me, are mechanical permits, so probably fuel gas. There are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those permits looks like. I'm sorry, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 8. Sorry, there are 8 permits that are not closed yet. So whatever stage, I haven't looked all those up per se, but you have eight permits that are still active under Mr. Summers as a contractor. Those according to his current employer probably should be transferred over to his current employer if he's going to continue to work on those, because he can't work as Summers mechanical anymore.
Oh, yeah, we were already in the process of doing that.
Okay.
We just got our license transferred over from the state.
Yeah, we actually just received
License yesterday.
license yesterday, and we're in the process of registering that with Columbus to do the transfer as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, and thankfully Shannon now has some backup with Jason, myself, and an entire team behind them that will help ensure that we don't have any future violations and make sure that everything's done exactly per requirements.
So, did you guys need anything else from me? I mean, like I said, there are 16 permits that he acquired in 2020. That was the question.
The concern in my mind is that this is not the first time that we have, I'm sorry, the concern in my mind is that this is not the first time that we have talked to Mr. Summers about this very same issue about not pulling a permit. This is the second time that he's been in front of this board. Granted, it's been some years since the last time, but maybe we're just not very frightening. I don't know. I would think that it would get your attention if you've been in front of us once.
It's been 10 years, right?
I agree with Patty, but on the other side, he is now working for another contractor. So I'm actually curious. I mean, since he's working for, I mean, it's not going to be, or how should I say this? He's in the employment of another contractor. I'm just trying to make sure that the permits will be pulled while he's in employment with this new, who he's doing work for, or the new contractor. So, that's my opinion.
Again, I have to state that this is something similar to the last case we looked at. It had a building card, so I can't see that he was intentionally trying to do something undercover or anything like that. It was, I would consider it an oversight. 9 years from the previous time he was before the board is I think that's I won't say excusable, but it's understandable. I would say that it's not anything that wasn't intentional. So that's what I'm looking at.
I understand all those comments and agree to the majority. However, as a licensed plumbing mechanical contractor, this all comes down to the fact that work was started prior to a permit being pulled. And given the fact that Summers Mechanical started work without pulling a permit is problematic. Definitely, given the fact that a building card was pulled, should have provocated something there that to initiate some thought, ideas, backtrack. And as much as I can agree that many people get busy trying to make things happen, trying to satisfy end users and customers, it's still inexcusable in my perspective that work was started without pulling a permit. So I have a hard time believing that that potentially that it was done unintentionally. But I'm not here to cast that judgment or determine that, because everything is situational, right? And especially this day and time, to where there's a lot of activity going on. I too can understand how something could get momentarily overlooked, but you know, I guess for me, I just like to re-clarify: was there any attempt to pulling the permit prior to being told not to? Mr. Summers?
Yeah. I attempted to pull the permits. I was just extremely busy. I was pretty much me and two other guys. I had a lot of jobs going on, and when I went to pull the permit, she already told me not to do it and get off the job. So, I pull permits on every job that I'm on.
So what's your practice?
It's my practice to pull them.
Understand. I appreciate you saying that. So, can I, Patty? I have no further questions or comments.
Okay, great. It is up to us as the board then to determine the consequence to the finding of guilt.
Board, if I may, just because it's been a while since we've all met and had to deal with some of these things. And given the fact that Mr. Summers has been, 9 months out since his last appearance for the, not 9 months, 9 years, excuse me, out since his last appearance for the board. I understand all those things, and, we did have a finding of fact and all that. I will bring up the fact that typically in a case like this, in the past, you have elected to table any kind of action. Now, I understand Summers Mechanical, for all intents and purposes, is no more, but he is now with a new contractor. Previously, you have asked for them to develop a process or a remedial action plan, right, that can ensure that this kind of thing does not happen again for the company. Now, I do understand that Apex is a whole different company, but it'd be I guess a good first starting point for them to go ahead and address this right off the bat, if they would like to. Again, it's up to the board if they want to go that direction. Again, Shannon Summers having been before the board 9 years ago has no bearing on this whatsoever, because that's really not even supposed to be considered. So, but since he will be the license holder for this, other company, it's just my opinion. And I know Wendy Boots is on here, and she's the city attorney. Although her microphone does not seem to be working, she can message me. But that really, to me, is up to the board if they would like to ask for something, because he's still a license holder. And if you want to take that into consideration before you decide on any action, if any action is going to be taken on his registration, that's up to the board. I'm just pointing out here's what we've done in the past, and here's something for you guys to consider moving forward. That's all.
Again, frighteningly similar thoughts. Do I have any other discussion from the board, or would we like to entertain a motion to table and give Apex an opportunity to put together an action plan for us to ensure that permits are pulled as appropriate?
Actually, Pat, I'll make a motion here, but before I do that, you bring up a good question here. Does Apex already have a standard operating procedure in place that identifies what the step-by-step procedure is when you are awarded a project. Is that already in place?
Go ahead and speak. So,
Yeah, we have a project where, yes, we will have a standard operating procedure, which will pull permits and have a very standard process where I, as the vice president, and Shannon will be able to do that.
So the question is, do you have one in place currently?
well, we don't have one that's formally written, but we do not send anyone to a job unless there's a permit on it. So right now, for example, we signed a job this week, and before Shannon or any of the plumbers went out there, we called, made sure we had all the licensing, and Shannon went down to the city of Columbus and pulled a permit same day before anybody stepped on the job site. So that's going to be an absolute mandatory requirement before any plumber steps on the job site. As soon as the paperwork is signed, obviously. Yeah, but we will formalize it in writing and submit it to you if that's your preference.
So Patty, with that being said, I'll make a motion to table the consequences to Summers Mechanical until next month. However, in the interim, Apex could provide the city of Columbus via the board or to the board a copy of that written procedure that they will be implementing and executing going forward.
Thanks, Tim. Do I have a second to Tim's motion to table contingent on a submission of the remedial action plan?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We'll go by voice. Mr. Hartz?
Approved.
Mr. Hoover?
Approved.
Mr. Consul?
Approved.
And I also approve the motion to table until next month. And we do ask Apex to provide us in writing a remedial action plan.
Do I email it to Jim? Do I send it straight to Jim?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
You can speak to me. I'm right here, bud.
Do I send it straight to you, Jim?
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to email
He wants to know, can we send that plan directly to you? The written
Yeah,
plan?
absolutely. I can get it distributed. I can get it distributed to the board ahead of time if you would
Excellent.
like.
Okay, excellent.
To be clear, the board's giving you the opportunity to provide a remedial action plan. There's nothing that says you actually have to provide one. But if you provide one, that's something for them to consider prior to making any determination as far as if they're going to have any kind of a penalty against your registration. That's basically what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to submit a plan for the board's review.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll talk again next month. In the meantime, Ms. Shepard and Mr. Summers and company, I think we're finished with your motion or with your issue today. So if you'd like to drop off, you're welcome to do that. And we really appreciate your time and coming to us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then moving through the agenda, I see that we have no old business. And so the last item is a motion to dismiss.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And by voice, Mr. Hartz?
Approved.
Mr. Hoover?
Approved.
Mr. Consul?
Approved.
And I approve as well. So we are finished with this meeting. Thank you all very much for your time today.
Folks, thank you for all being on here. Continue being safe, please. And I hope you all get your vaccines.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good seeing everyone.